Okay. Hello everyone and welcome to my presentation. I am really happy to see all of you here today. This talk is a part of a series named Young Scholar, organized by Yunus Emre Institute since 2017. And thank you for giving us a place to introduce ourselves and our studies. My name is Tuba and I am a third year PhD student in Kingston University. I'm studying clinical psychology. My research focuses on help-seeking behaviors and complex trauma of a specific migrant group. But today I will be talking about a part of my research, psychological insights into the migrant experience in London. In this presentation, I will examine psychological insights into the migrant experience by help-seeking behavior among migrants. To provide clarity and structure, I have organized the help-seeking behavior within the ecological system framework. This approach will allow us to see the complex layer of the influences on help-seeking behaviors more clearly and concisely. As I go through each level, I'll also highlight how these factors impact their mental health. Following this, I will briefly explain what kind of solutions literature has provided us and how my study aims to contribute these solutions to create more supportive environment for migrants. And I will shortly touch available services and my observation about these services. But first, I want to share my experience as a migrant. This happened during my first year in London when I was alone and I wasn't unfamiliar with my surroundings. I was exploring and trying to adapt my new environment and settling into my new life. One day, after a short sleep, after a siesta, I decided to take a walk to relax because I was very stressful at that day. I walked to a public park, sat down and found myself lost in my thought. Suddenly, I was verbally assaulted by a man, which brought me back to the reality. He continued to look at me and swear at me. And at that point, it was very scary. The only thing I was doing was to exist in that place. In response, I couldn't do anything but try to pretend that he wasn't directing his comments to me, and I started to walk opposite direction, which is not exist. Eventually, he chose to walk away, but I couldn't help but wonder what I would have done if he hadn't. But the first thought that crossed my mind was, is this happening because I'm a migrant? This is just a small example of what migrants go through to survive in a different country, in a foreign country. Although we call ourselves migrant because we have moved to another country, our reasons of moving to another country is very different from those of the migrant community I'm talking about in this presentation. They consist of individuals who have fled to another country to protect themselves from war, torture, conflict, poverty, and violence, human rights violations, persecutions, etc. In this presentation, our focus will be on their experiences. But I am sure that at some point we can relate ourselves to their experiences, like language difficulties. As global trend report by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees showed that by the end of 2023, nearly 117 million people forcibly displaced across the world. Nearly half of them are those who have moved outside of their country. They were asylum seekers, refugees, and other people in the need of international protection. Despite they have these issues and the help-seeking rate of their help-seeking rate is very low, and the literature are questioning why. So in this presentation, we are questioning why. Language barriers, poverty, unemployment, discrimination, social isolation, lack of social support are some of the factors that can be seen very frequently in the literature. So there is the definition of help-seeking behavior. American Psychological Association defined help-seeking behavior as searching for or requesting help from others via formal or informal mechanisms, such as mental health services. So I will, okay. Can I take Teşekkür ederim.
Oh, thank you.
Çalışıyordur inşallah. As I mentioned, to provide clarity and structure, I will organize this barrier to help-seeking behavior into the ecological system framework. So, what is ecological system framework? According to ecological system framework, individual exists within the interconnected social context rather than living in an isolation. So the structural context in which we live shapes our perception of health, well-being, right to health care, and our sense of control, thereby influencing our help-seeking behavior. These various yet important relationships restrict our access to assets and influence our decision-making and behaviors. Uncovering these connections can help us to understand how the environment influences the decision made by migrants in seeking help. Now we will examine these levels from the individual level to the macro system, by with examples. Individual factors are related to biological, psychological, and behavioral characteristics of individuals. For instance, age, intelligence, cognitive capacity, coping ability, trauma history, language ability. I won't be able to examine each concept one by one, so I chose some of them. For me, the language ability is the most prominent one. So let's start with language ability. But I want to ask first, how many of us here speak English as a second language? Yeah, so much. Do you remember what it was like when you first came to the UK? It was very rough, tough for me. Like up until then, I thought I knew English very well. I was so self-confident. But even now, I sometimes wonder really if I know English or not. Language is an important and multifaceted element for migrants to adapt to the new atmosphere and create a social network. So the language barriers stand as significant obstacles for migrants. For example, in Kartal et al. Study, it is highlighted that how migrants express their concerns and symptoms of mental health problems, establish rapport, that means safe relationship with their therapist, and build trust in the treatment are linked to the language skills. Sometimes I think about how challenging it must be to convey deeply sensitive issues with limited language skills, and especially when even small tasks sometimes can be very difficult for us. Moving on, mental health problems, which are really disturbing in the individual's cognitive and social skills, are one of the other individual factors that can hinder migrants' willingness to seek help. According to Blackmore's systematic reviews, analysis show that the prevalence of mental illnesses such as post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and complex trauma is higher among refugees and asylum seekers compared to the general population. So I know depression and post-traumatic stress disorders are very familiar to us, so I will continue with complex trauma. In simple terms, complex trauma is a sibling disorders of post-traumatic stress disorder, but it follows more severe and prolonged types of trauma. Unlike PTSD, which often arises from single fear-based events like natural disasters like earthquakes, complex trauma is relational. For instance, it may develop from ongoing abuse, such as domestic violence, where the abuser is someone with whom the survivor has a close relationship. This kind of trauma deeply impacts a person's ability to feel close to others and maintain a social relationships. Complex trauma affects the basic structures that allow people to connect with and trust to others. The trust issue is reflected in the seeing world as dangerous and the seeing self as being so vulnerable in this world. So this maybe explain people's unwillingness to seek formal help. As some studies mentioned that they express they have difficulties in relying on the criminal justice system's competency to safeguard them. The microsystem, on the other hand, includes daily life interaction with family, friends, and co-workers and partners. The odds of seeking help may differ according to the structure of the family. Generally, living with a family provides a support system that may increase the likelihood of seeking help. In some cases, even family members can have overcome the language barriers, with some acting as interpreters for others. However, in situations involving violence, such as intimate partner violence, this level can become a mental and psychological emotional trap. For example, partners' psychological control over other partner keeps them at home serving their families, and economic violence that inhibits them from gaining skills to improve their financial status serve as obstacles for their help-seeking behavior. And they may be afraid of losing their income if their partner is the money provider. Moving on the meso-exosystem level, these mesosystem levels involve relationship between individuals and systems within and between them. The exosystem level encompasses laws, services, policies related to violence against migrant population. I examined both levels together because they are indistinguishable at some point. So the mesosystem barriers such as inadequate clinical and cultural knowledge among healthcare providers, negative attitudes, the fear of stigmatization can discourage migrants from seeking help. Accessibility, acceptability, awareness, and availability are the most common one studied in the literature in this level. So accessibility challenges such as transportation costs and limited support staff make it difficult for many to access services. Migrants, particularly in the UK, have emphasized the importance of consistent access to support staff who can foster trusting relationships. And also long wait times further complicate the access. Service acceptability is another barrier, as many refugees and asylum seekers find mental health services culturally unaccommodating. For example, Kurdish refugees in the UK expressed a preference for Turkish-speaking doctors and traditional healers named Hacı Hoca, as these options felt more culturally appropriate to their needs. Migrants also mentioned a desire for more ethnic minority staff in psychiatric services, help build trust and create positive therapeutic relationship. And the last, a lack of awareness about mental health services further restrict access. Refugees and asylum seekers in the UK reported not knowing about services for conditions like anxiety and expressed reluctance to discuss emotional issues with GP. This awareness gap extends beyond migrants, as some healthcare providers may also lack of understanding of the psychological underpinnings of certain physical symptoms, such as somatoform disorders, pointing to a need for broader education among both providers and migrant communities. The macrosystem level, the last level of our ecological system variable, excludes social cultural factors, including traditional gender roles, prejudice, and the exclusion of minorities. Cultural and patriarchal roles, norms strongly influence health-seeking behaviors among migrant men and women. In many cultures, mental health struggles are viewed as sign of weakness and shame, affecting men's and women's ability to meet their expected gender roles. For men, the pressure to manage a job, provide financially, and uphold social status is significant in these cultures. Globally, masculinity often prevents men from seeking help, as mental health issues are seen as a threat to their strength and resilience. Similarly, for women, mental health challenges may be seen as evidence of weakness, impacting their perceived ability to fulfill domestic roles and household responsibilities. This stigma makes it difficult for both men and women to seek to support they may need. Also, systems not including the techniques that help increase migrants' involvement in the community, norms and cultural values may diminish migrants' help-seeking behavior due to the fear of detention by the community. Up to here, I tried to create a picture of migrants' problems to immerse in their life. Now I will proceed how I can address these gaps and contribute to a more supportive environment for migrants. In my first project, apart from literature, I have been present here. I will be asking directly to the individual. More closely, I want to define system gap with clients' words. I think that will give me more to the point solutions. By conducting interviews and going deep in the literature, I want to make bridge between real life and the theories. Let's see what theory says us as a solution. According to the literature, the ecological model suggests that the intervention program should be informed by all levels, which are individual, relational, institutional, and societal. Another important information says that the intersectionality of survivor-centered programs allows for comprehending people's needs from all aspects, including trauma and culturally informed care. And the other one says that reflect the intervention programs that reflecting the communities and including community-based solutions can enhance survivors' help-seeking behavior and reduce the risk of violence. But I want to understand how this is reflected in real life and how the migrants benefit from it. What they think would be more efficient for them are my questions. To do that, I volunteer in different organizations and currently volunteer at Refugee Action Kingston. This experience makes me to see how institutions perceive and respond to the needs of refugees and migrant communities. At Refugee Action Kingston, I am responsible for guiding people to the appropriate services for their needs, whether that's legal support, counseling, or general advice. And in my spare time, I can socialize with my little friends. Refugee Action Kingston is a charity, so its efforts are largely dependent on external funding and the dedication of volunteers. They offer support in areas like English language learning, job search assistance, legal processes, essential tasks such as registering for GP, registering for e-visa. However, because much of the work relies on the volunteers, the capacity to meet all needs can be limited. So, for example, they offer mental health support, but are not able to offer individual therapies. Despite these challenges, I find the situation is promising in the UK because the organization demonstrates a strong awareness of cultural and experiential diversity among refugees and works actively to provide culture-sensitive services. Refugee Action Kingston is just a branch of several refugee action organizations throughout the London, each working in collaboration with the Refugee Council. The Refugee Council also demonstrates a strong awareness of the unique challenges faced by refugee communities. However, I believe there is still to more explore, understand, and address to fully meet the diverse needs of these individuals. So I think this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. I would be happy to answer any question. Yeah.
What's the difference between refugee and asylum seeker and seeking
other
protection, international protection?
I know the difference between asylum seeker and refugees. Asylum seekers, refugees have a right to work here and live here. Asylum seekers are newcomers and seeking for help from the protection of government. They should prove that they are in need of protection. They have process, and after that process, they are getting refugee status to live here and to get right to work here.
Any other question?
Yeah.
So there are many countries in the world which take in refugees, right? Have you done any sort of studies on which is the most efficient and cost-effective refugee service, which also helps refugees in a better way? Is it Canada? Is it UK? Yeah.
I was focused on the refugees especially like London. I even didn't buy it into the UK, but I didn't do my research scope is not cost effectiveness of the systems. I'm more into the perception of the clients to the systems. But
maybe UN refugee programs, United Nations, because I have several branches of course, especially in the developed countries which welcome refugees across several Middle Eastern and African countries.
Even Turkey, right?
Even Turkey.
1 million Syrians.
Many Middle Eastern citizens flee into Turkey, but yes, maybe I'm just asking. Yeah, maybe because UN has several refugee programs which are established to maybe structure on how countries should welcome those.
actually,
Yeah, but of course there is not a standardized. So each institution provide different services for refugees. So some take care of health services, some others take care of education, and there is not a broad. But many UN based.
I couldn't because it is not. I'm not very familiar to that part of the refugee issues. So I can agree. Yeah.
To understand through your research, what are the shortcomings that you found, and what are the recommendations you'd make to have a more improved service, especially like London and,
Can I think? Yeah, actually, I think for me, if accessibility or visibility of the systems are increased, the refugees and maybe the help-seeking behavior can increase. Because from my personal experiences and the literature and observations, I can't see the way how they are visible to the refugees. I wouldn't know these services if I haven't searched about it. So I think they should be more visible in the streets, more like manual, not just online, not just a website. Maybe I don't know, just more visible way.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And I understand it's a PhD research, so
Yeah.
you need a scope and you need to draw on your limits to research something. And I want to ask you about your methodology. Do you do interviews or do you have a focus group like females, children? And also there is a differentiation between being a refugee and immigrant, and being an academic immigrant is totally different from being a refugee, and also even being a like Syrian refugee is totally different than being a Palestinian refugee. You know, it's so. I wonder which group are you looking, and what kind of methods will you apply, or did you apply before?
Actually, my study is not only looking just directly to migrants. Another part of my study is including intimate partner violence. My population is women, migrant women who experience intimate partner violence. So it would be very dark to talk about here, so that I chose this topic.
Okay. What about the theoretical, perception of it? It's like, do you use feminism or like any definition, or which theoretical background will shape understanding the female perception and domestic violence?
I can't say like there's lots more intersection of my study, because there is one part of complex trauma, one part migration process, and one part of its intimate partner violence. I can't say like I am solely on feminism ground, but it has some point in it.
Okay.
But because my PhD titled clinical psychology, I am more prone to do from
so
that
not like sociological thing, but more clinical.
More clinical psychology.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. So my question is related to the refugee action at Kingston University. So I think we are here like coming from different universities, but I have never heard any like other refugee action in my university, or let's say in other universities. So I was wondering, is this just specific to the University of Kingston, or let's say under the UK there are also like different this kind of organizations related to the universities?
Okay. Actually, Refugee Action Kingston is a branch of Refugee Action here. So it is in the UK, it's London, there's more Refugee Action neighborhood, I can say, like in Islington, one can be in Islington, one can be North, I don't know. But there is more. It is not related to which university. It is because it is Refugee Action Kingston, and I'm from Kingston University. You may make this connection. Huh? District. Yeah, it is in district. It is related to actually.
Not university. Okay, because the university name is Kingston. I was thinking so maybe regarding the university.
It is very natural to think in this way.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any other questions? No? Okay.
Thank you very much for your talk.
Thank you. Can we take a selfie? Okay. Nereden buradan? Bence alıyor muyum herkese? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Thank you.